The sequel is paramount to horror survival as a genre. It's pretty widely accepted that most, if not all, horror sequels do not live up to the original. However, they make a lot of money and are usually a bunch of fun. So for some movies, it's a no-brainer to make a sequel. Bring back the threat everyone loved and use a bunch of new characters as cannon fodder. However, there are plenty of times where there is literally no reason outside of immediate profit to make a sequel. These are the movies that the world would be better off without. Sometimes it's better to have fond memories of exactly one flick instead of gradually worsening ones of a whole series. Hello horror heads and welcome back to the Scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos. I'm your horror host Keegan Hughes, and today we're gonna take a look at the top 5 scary horror movies that should never get a sequel. I'm gonna be bouncing back and forth between a bunch of different reasons here, so stick with me. Before we get started, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more duplicitous doppelgangers. Perfect, let's begin. Coming in at number 5, we've got the Babadook. So I've heard people float the idea of a Babadook sequel before, and I'm against it. Not necessarily because I don't think there's a demand for it, or because it wouldn't be all that good, but because a sequel would kind of overwrite the original. In the Babadook, the titular demon is released and runs rampant for a little while, causing all sorts of mayhem. It makes Amelia's son, Sam, act out in all sorts of awful ways and consistently terrifies her. It's a very scary monster. In fact, it might even be a pretty solid franchise contender if there were a bunch of sequels. But by bringing the Babadook out from under the house to cause trouble again, you would erase the messages and themes from the first. Recall the ending of the movie. Spoilers ahead, by the way. Sam, in his infinite childlike wisdom, tells his mom that you can't get rid of the Babadook. Damn right. She experiences her husband's death again and manages to push the monster away. In doing so, she sees an opening. She can lock the door and force the Babadook to live in their basement. The Babadook doesn't die, his presence isn't solved, he's still there. But Amelia and Sam learn to live with him, to feed him when necessary. In doing so, they can get on with their lives and become whole people again. They just have to acknowledge that the monster is indeed there and lives in the dark. As long as they can manage his presence, they'll be alright. The Babadook himself can be read as a manifestation of grief. After losing her husband, she blamed her son and herself and couldn't let it go. So the Babadook took corporeal form and started making her life much worse. The choice is clear: fight a losing battle against a crazy demon or accept the presence of something unpleasant. By making that second choice, Amelia saves herself and her son. A sequel could feature a different family dealing with the Babadook or even the same unit a few years down the line, but I think bringing the monster out of the dark would dull the lessons learned from the first movie. So while it might be interesting and profitable, it would fly in the face of the original. Some things just don't need more explaining. Coming in at number 4, we've got The Last Horror Movie. This one is pretty self-explanatory. Any sequel would immediately contradict this title and cause some rift in the space-time continuum. It can't be The Last Horror Movie if there's a sequel. Case closed. Coming in at number 3. I'm kidding. I'll actually give some solid reasons as to why we wouldn't want a sequel to this one. Alright, so The Last Horror Movie is a pretty meta experience. We, as the audience, are meant to believe that we're watching the only copy of this movie. The flick consists of found footage remnants of stuff shot by Max Perry, wedding videographer extraordinaire. He and his assistant run around videotaping murders they commit. How lovely. The whole time, Max asks the audience questions. What'd you think of that death? Wouldn't you have liked to see so-and-so die? Could you be next? And that's what the whole movie's leading up to, the reveal that you, yes you, could be Max's next victim. He knows you're watching this and plays with your expectations as a horror consumer. And in the end, because it's supposedly the only copy of the movie, you're marked for death. Sheesh. If that's the case, people really don't want a sequel to this, you know, because then they would die. I told you there'd be all sorts of crazy reasoning in this video. Coming in at number 3, we've got The Cabin in the Woods. Right on. We usually hold this film up on a crazy high pedestal on this channel, and for good reasons. It's a wicked fun love letter to horror movies along with a condemnation of demanding horror audiences. In previous videos, we've covered all the reasons why Cabin in the Woods should get prequels and spin-offs and limited run TV specials. There are enough monsters, murderers, and MacGuffins in this one movie to supply a 10-year horror movie extended universe with content, but no sequels. Why? Because a sequel would mean retconning the literal end of the world. After fighting off an incestuous backwoods zombie family, our heroes die off one by one. Motorcycle crash caused by invisible barrier. Bear trap followed by decapitation. Impaling through the neck while driving. As all this happens, it's revealed that a shady government organization is calling the shots in order to please some powerful gods with a fixation on suffering. Then, as things go south real quickly, we meet all of the monsters. This is where that extended universe potential lies. As it turns out, this odd organization has been capturing and cataloging all sorts of horrific beasts and turning them loose one at a time to please the powers that be. Well, surprise, surprise, this time everything gets absolutely goofed and the gods are not pleased. And the world literally ends. Armageddon, everyone. Do you see where I'm going with this? We can't have a sequel, there's nothing left to do, it's all over. We got to witness the end of a long line of horror activities that effectively canonizes every horror movie, book, and TV show to date. So sure, prior to the events of the movie, anything is fair game, but to place something further along in that timeline is just silly. Coming in at number 2, we've got Escape Room. Now, this might be a little confusing. In fact, it confused me too. You see, back in 2017, there were 2 movies released called Escape Room, and that's not even counting the one Sony did in 2019. Pop culture had latched onto the thrill of locking yourself in a room with some friends and solving puzzles to get out. It was like living through Saw, but without any of the deadly morality games. So of course, folks wanted to cash in on the idea. A little late, but still. What if you went to an escape room expecting to have harmless fun, but it actually tried to kill you? Big brain stuff right there. One of the 2 2017 movies titled Escape Room was recently released on Netflix, which is why I knew about it. This is a movie that attempts to set up a sequel, but really doesn't deserve one. Here, I actually wrote some quick notes down after watching it, like back in April or whatever. Nothing happens for the first 60 minutes. An absolutely insane amount of filler. Zero payoff, truly unlikable characters, cool acid gas scene. A guy's arm skin comes off like a glove. So there's one cool scene, but the rest isn't exactly a glowing review, is it? The plot goes like this. A man turns 30, so his girlfriend throws him a party. They have dinner with friends for a while, and there's a lady who obviously wants to sleep with the birthday boy. Then they ride in a van towards a mysterious escape room, and the lady still wants to sleep with the birthday boy. Then they get to the escape room and play normal escape room games for 30 minutes, all the while the lady tries to sleep with the birthday boy. Hey, nothing's happened yet. How long have we been watching? An hour? Then everyone dies in really boring and bloodless ways, and a mystery man calls the lone survivor on a payphone. Did you escape, or did they? Oh, how ominous. The folks behind Escape Room 2017 1.0 obviously thought that having a masked killer would be a cool idea, but didn't think far enough ahead to consider that the audience might want to know something about them in the end. Sure, they might have planned on revealing this in the sequel, but I doubt they're making one. Oh wait, that's the end of Sony's Escape Room 2? And they are getting a sequel? My God. And coming in at number 1, we've got The House That Jack Built. I mean, Lars von Trier will never make a sequel to any of his movies, and you can quote me on that. But The House That Jack Built should especially not get a sequel. Not only because it wouldn't make sense in the context of the story, but because the character of Jack is so irredeemable that his fate at the end is the only way the story could end. Spoilers, of course. Jack is a serial killer who is slowly building a structure made of frozen corpses. His career as an architect didn't exactly work out, so he decided to indulge in some more, let's say, human construction projects. He's the story's unreliable narrator, recounting his time as a murderer to a version of Virgil of Dante's Inferno fame. Jack attempts to rationalize his cold-blooded acts and convince Virgil of the way he sees the world, but ultimately fails. The conversation between the two is interesting, for sure, but Virgil never buys into Jack's reasoning. It becomes very obvious that Jack is a dangerous sociopath, desperately attempting to get people to see his side of things. He murdered people in violent and disturbing ways for seemingly no reason and upped the ante over time. Some of the actions he performs in this movie are downright bone-chilling. So to hear him attempt to make a case that these murders are somehow okay in his context is doubly unsettling. In the end, he makes it into the deepest circle of hell with Virgil as his guide. It turns out that Virgil simply wanted to give him the full tour before returning him to the circle that he belongs to. But Jack sees stairs across the abyss and asks where they lead. Out of hell, of course. So being the hubris-filled lunatic that he is, Jack attempts to span the gap and falls into the hellfire. Good riddance. The story can no longer continue, and we've done enough exploration in relation to Jack's life philosophy. It's a good movie if you can stomach it, but it definitely doesn't need to be revisited in any more detail. I know, I'm starving the movie industry of precious sequel dollars by making this video, but I do stand by my assessment. Not everything needs a sequel or a reboot or a remake or a limited run television series. So what'd you think of my list? Do you agree with my selections? Is there a movie you'd pay good money to ensure never gets a sequel? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more sprightly ones from the top 5 bizarre Siren Head facts. Patrick Barnes says, I have a theory that in the Trevor Henderson universe, the Smile Room is just another one of Siren Head's many camouflages. Interesting theory. I mean, the teeth line up, don't they? Dally Must Die 2002 says, gonna be honest, Slender Man would kill a Siren Head as he's a centuries-old demon and can grow to unimaginable heights, has tentacles, superhuman strength, rips people apart with no problem, and can't die unless set on fire. I would say all that applies to Siren Head as well, plus there are multiple Siren Heads. Slender Man's a product of many minds making up their own canon too. Arthur says, I've always appreciated the Silent Hill vibes of Mr. Siren Head. Oh, most definitely. You can see the Silent Hill inspiration coming right through. And that's all the time we have for today. Before I paint a haunted picture with forbidden paints and brushes made of bone, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more sneering simpletons. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. I'm gonna be bouncing back and forth between a bunch of different reasons here, so don't expect me to be super, oh my god, what's the word? I thought I'd think of it before I ended that sentence. So the Babadook, and in the end, it's nope. It's a good movie if you can stomach it, but the flick consists of found footage remnants of Schaffstadt, yes.